March 15, 1943, North Atlantic 400 miles southeast of Greenland. The freezing darkness swallowed convoy HX-229 as it carved through 12-foot swells, carrying grain, steel and fuel to a starving Britain. 43 merchant ships pressed forward through the storm, their engines drumming a steady rhythm against the howling wind. Below deck, American sailors huddled around radio sets, headphones pressed tight against their ears, listening to the static-filled void that stretched to every horizon. What they heard in that crackling silence would have terrified any German U-boat commander. Through the storm, advanced American radio receivers were capturing every coded transmission the enemy sent. Each encrypted message that German submarines trusted to coordinate their deadly wolfpack attacks was being intercepted, decoded, and turned into American advantage. The Germans had no idea their most secret weapon, the Enigma cipher machine, had become their greatest vulnerability. In the radio compartments of escort destroyers, operators hunched over their equipment like sentries guarding an invisible fortress. The green glow of vacuum tubes illuminated their concentrated faces as they fine-tuned frequencies, hunting for the electronic signatures that would reveal German positions. Every dot and dash captured by American ears brought the convoy one step closer to safety. Every German transmission meant another chance to outmaneuver an enemy who believed himself invisible. The wolf packs were closing in, their commanders confident that Enigma kept their movements secret from Allied forces. They had no way of knowing that American technology had turned their greatest strength into a weapon pointed directly at their own submarines. If you were a German captain that night, trusting your life to an unbreakable code, would you have suspected that enemy radios were already reading your every message? The Enigma machine arrived in German naval service during the late 1920s, a mechanical marvel that military leaders believed would secure their communications forever. This typewriter-sized device used rotating wheels and electrical circuits to scramble messages into seemingly random combinations of letters. German Naval Command calculated that breaking Enigma would require testing 150 trillion possible combinations, a mathematical impossibility for any enemy codebreaker. By 1939, every German submarine carried Enigma machines, and commanders transmitted operational orders with complete confidence in their security. German faith in Enigma grew stronger as early wartime successes mounted. Admiral Karl Dönitz, architect of the U-boat campaign, coordinated submarine attacks through encrypted messages that detailed convoy routes, target priorities, and rendezvous points. His submarines sank Allied merchant ships faster than British shipyards could replace them, strangling the supply lines that kept Britain fighting. Between 1940 and 1942, German U-boats sent over 3,500 merchant vessels to the bottom of the Atlantic, a maritime slaughter that seemed unstoppable. German commanders attributed their success to superior tactics and submarine technology, never suspecting that their communication system might be compromised. What the Germans didn't know was that British codebreakers at Bletchley Park had been reading selected Enigma traffic since 1940, after capturing German cipher materials from damaged submarines. However, the breakthrough that would transform the Battle of the Atlantic came from an unexpected source: American technological innovation. The United States Navy had developed advanced radio interception capabilities that could capture German transmissions across vast ocean distances. While Bletchley Park focused on breaking captured messages, American listening stations were systematically intercepting Enigma signals in real time, creating a continuous stream of intelligence. The first American naval radio intelligence stations began operations in 1941, months before Pearl Harbor brought the United States officially into the war. These facilities, scattered along the Atlantic coast from Maine to Florida, represented the most sophisticated electronic surveillance network ever created. Each station housed rows of receivers capable of monitoring dozens of frequencies simultaneously, staffed by operators trained to recognize the distinctive characteristics of German naval transmissions. The equipment filled rooms the size of aircraft hangars, with antenna arrays stretching across acres of carefully cleared ground. American radio operators developed techniques that amazed their British counterparts. Where traditional interception required manually tuning receivers to hunt for signals, American stations used automated scanning systems that could monitor entire frequency bands continuously. When German submarines transmitted, American receivers locked onto their signals within seconds, recording not just the encrypted messages, but also technical details that revealed transmission locations, power levels, and equipment types. This flood of information provided cryptanalysts with far more raw material than had ever been available to codebreakers. The scale of American radio interception dwarfed previous intelligence operations. By late 1942, American stations were capturing more than 2,000 German naval messages daily, feeding a constant stream of encrypted communications to code-breaking centers. Teams of cryptanalysts worked around the clock, processing intercepted Enigma traffic through mechanical computing devices that automated much of the decryption process. What had once taken British codebreakers hours now required minutes, transforming tactical intelligence from a historical curiosity into a real-time weapon. German submarine commanders never suspected the extent of Allied interception capabilities. They knew that radio transmissions could theoretically be detected, but German naval intelligence assured them that Enigma encryption made their actual messages unreadable. U-boat captains transmitted freely, reporting their positions, fuel status, torpedo supplies, and attack plans with complete confidence. They had been trained to trust Enigma absolutely, and nothing in their experience suggested that this trust was misplaced. The psychological advantage this created for American forces was enormous. Convoy commanders received intelligence briefings that seemed almost supernatural in their accuracy. They knew where German submarines were operating, how many torpedoes each boat carried, and which shipping routes the enemy planned to attack. American naval officers found themselves fighting an enemy whose every strategic move was predicted in advance, whose tactical decisions were known before they were implemented, and whose supposed advantages evaporated under the weight of superior intelligence. By early 1943, the technological gap between German communication security and American interception capabilities had become a chasm that German commanders couldn't see. Every Enigma message transmitted by U-boats was being captured, decoded, and analyzed by an intelligence apparatus that operated on an industrial scale. German submarines were no longer hunters stalking helpless prey. They had become predictable targets, tracked by an enemy they had vastly underestimated. The stage was set for a transformation in naval warfare that would alter the course of World War II. German confidence in Enigma would prove to be the instrument of their own destruction, as American radio technology turned their most trusted communication system into a weapon that pointed directly at German submarines. The hunters were about to become the hunted, and they had no idea what was coming. March 16, 1943, 04:23 GMT. U.S. Naval Communication Station, Cheltenham, Maryland. Radio operator first class. Robert Manning pressed his headphones tight against his ears as static filled the airwaves. Then, cutting through the electronic noise like a knife through silk, came the distinctive rhythm of German Morse code. Manning's fingers flew across his equipment, fine-tuning the receiver until the signal locked in crystal clear. Another Enigma transmission was coming through, and this one was strong, close enough to indicate a U-boat operating in American waters. Manning's equipment represented the pinnacle of 1943 radio technology. The massive receivers that dominated the Cheltenham station could detect German transmissions from over 1,000 miles away, their sensitive circuits amplifying weak signals until every dot and dash stood out like lighthouse beams against the darkness. As the German message continued, Manning typed each character onto a special form, his trained ear automatically converting Morse code into letters. He had no idea what the scrambled text meant, but he knew that somewhere in those seemingly random combinations lay intelligence that could save American lives. Within minutes of Manning's interception, the encrypted message was racing through secure telephone lines to the Navy's cryptographic center in Washington, D.C. There, teams of analysts fed the captured text into mechanical computing devices that had transformed code-breaking from an art into a science. The machines hummed and clicked as they tested thousands of possible Enigma settings, their mechanical brains working through mathematical combinations at speeds no human could match. What emerged was intelligence so precise it seemed impossible. U-558 was operating 200 miles southeast of Nantucket, had 3 torpedoes remaining, and was heading northwest to intercept convoy SC-122. The information reached convoy commanders with time to spare. Captain Paul Heinemann, leading the escort group protecting SC-122, received a decoded message that read like a summary of German tactical planning. The intelligence didn't just reveal enemy positions, it provided a complete picture of U-boat intentions, capabilities, and vulnerabilities. Heinemann immediately ordered course corrections that would take his convoy away from the submarine's projected intercept point, while his destroyers moved to hunt the U-boat, whose position had been betrayed by its own communications. German U-boat commander Captain Lieutenant Günther Kresch never suspected that his encrypted transmission had been intercepted, decoded, and converted into an American tactical advantage. Operating from U-558's cramped control room, Kresch had transmitted his position report according to standard procedures, confident that Enigma encryption made his message unreadable to enemy forces. His Enigma machine had scrambled his text through 3 rotating wheels, each of which could be set to any of 26 positions, creating encryption that German cryptographers assured him was mathematically unbreakable. But American radio intelligence had advantages that German commanders never imagined. The network of listening stations stretching along the Atlantic coast operated as a single coordinated system, capable of triangulating submarine positions through direction-finding techniques that pinpointed transmissions to within a few miles. When U-558 transmitted, receivers at Cheltenham, Maryland, Amagansett, New York, and Winter Harbor, Maine, all captured the signal simultaneously. Computer analysis of the timing differences between these receptions revealed not just the submarine's general location, but its precise coordinates. The speed of American intelligence processing would have astounded German naval command. Where traditional code-breaking required days or weeks of analysis, American machines were decoding Enigma messages within hours of interception. The industrial-scale approach to cryptanalysis meant that every German submarine transmission was being processed by multiple teams simultaneously, ensuring that no intelligence opportunity was lost. By the time U-558's message had been transmitted, decoded, and distributed to operational commanders, Kresch was still submerged, unaware that his submarine had become a tracked target. American convoy protection reached unprecedented levels of effectiveness as radio intelligence transformed defensive operations. Escort commanders received regular updates on German submarine positions, allowing them to position their forces with surgical precision. Instead of searching randomly across thousands of square miles of ocean, American destroyers could focus their efforts on specific coordinates where intelligence indicated enemy activity. The psychological impact on convoy crews was enormous. For the first time since the war began, they felt like they were fighting an enemy they could see. The technological edge provided by American radio interception extended far beyond individual submarine encounters. Intelligence analysts were building a comprehensive picture of German submarine operations, tracking maintenance schedules, fuel consumption rates, and operational patterns that revealed strategic intentions. Every Enigma message contributed to a database that made German submarine movements increasingly predictable, turning Donitz's Wolfpack tactics into a liability rather than an advantage. German submarines continued transmitting with complete confidence in their communication security. Kapitän-Leutnant Krech and his fellow U-boat commanders had been trained to trust Enigma absolutely, and their experience provided no evidence that this trust was misplaced. They knew their transmissions might be detected, but German naval intelligence assured them that decryption was impossible. This confidence led to an extraordinary strategic blindness. German submarine forces were essentially transmitting their positions to an enemy they believed couldn't read their messages. The scale of intelligence advantage built through radio interception became clear as convoy battles developed. American forces knew not just where individual submarines were operating, but how many torpedoes each boat carried, when they planned to surface for battery charging, and which convoy routes they intended to attack. This information allowed convoy commanders to avoid German submarines entirely or to coordinate attacks that caught enemy forces completely off guard. German U-boats found themselves under attack from directions they never anticipated, by forces that seemed to appear from nowhere. By late March 1943, the pattern of convoy battles had fundamentally changed. German submarine commanders were reporting increasingly poor results, with fewer successful attacks and higher loss rates among their own forces. Dönitz attributed these setbacks to improved Allied tactics and better escort procedures, never suspecting that his submarines' own communication systems were providing their enemies with complete operational intelligence. The irony was complete. German faith in Enigma had become the mechanism of German defeat. Every encrypted message that U-boat commanders trusted to coordinate their attacks was being intercepted, decoded, and turned into an American tactical advantage. The hunters had become the hunted, tracked by technology they never imagined existed, defeated by an enemy who could read their every strategic move. American radio operators continued their silent vigil, headphones pressed tight against their ears, capturing the electronic signals that carried German secrets across the Atlantic. Each transmission they intercepted brought Allied victory one step closer, turning German technology against itself with a precision that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. The Battle of the Atlantic was being won not by guns or torpedoes, but by American ears that heard everything and German commanders who suspected nothing. Within weeks of implementing systematic Enigma decryption, American convoy losses plummeted to levels that amazed Allied naval command. March 1943 marked a turning point so dramatic that intelligence officers initially suspected German submarine forces had been withdrawn from Atlantic operations. Instead of losing 15-20 merchant ships per convoy, Allied losses dropped to single digits, then to numbers so low they seemed impossible. The statistical transformation was staggering. German U-boats that had been sinking Allied vessels at a rate of 700,000 tons per month suddenly found their effectiveness reduced by more than 60%. American sailors began noticing changes that felt almost supernatural. Convoy routes that had previously taken ships directly through known U-boat hunting grounds now followed paths that seemed to avoid German submarines entirely. Radio rooms that had crackled with distress signals from torpedoed merchants now remained ominously quiet, filled only with routine navigation traffic and weather reports. Merchant crews who had grown accustomed to sleeping in their life jackets found themselves relaxing for the first time since entering combat zones. Seaman First Class Thomas Rodriguez, serving aboard the Liberty ship SS Benjamin Rush, wrote to his family in April 1943, "Something has changed out here. We don't see the periscope wakes anymore. We don't hear the explosions in the distance. It's like the submarines just disappeared, but we know they're still out there somewhere. The old-timers say they've never seen anything like it. We're making it across without losing ships, and nobody can explain why." German submarine commanders began reporting experiences that defied their understanding of convoy warfare. U-boat captains who had successfully attacked Allied shipping for months suddenly found their targets mysteriously absent from predicted intercept points. Submarines that positioned themselves along established shipping lanes discovered empty ocean where intelligence had promised rich targets. German Naval Command initially attributed these failures to improved Allied escort procedures, but the pattern was too consistent to be explained by tactical changes alone. Kapitänleutnant Werner Henke, commanding U-515, transmitted a frustrated message to German naval headquarters in April 1943. "Convoys appear to be avoiding our operational areas entirely. Despite accurate navigation to predicted intercept points, targets consistently fail to appear. Suggest enemy may have developed new detection capabilities." Henke's message, like every other German transmission, was intercepted and decoded by American intelligence within hours, providing confirmation that radio interception was achieving its intended strategic effect. The psychological impact on German submarine crews became evident in intercepted communications and post-war testimonies. U-boat commanders, who had grown confident in their ability to find and attack Allied shipping, began reporting increased stress and declining morale. Patrols that had once lasted days before finding targets now stretched into weeks of fruitless searching. German submarines found themselves burning precious fuel while pursuing convoys that seemed to evaporate whenever U-boats approached their operational areas. American intelligence analysts watched German submarine effectiveness collapse through the lens of their own success. Daily intelligence summaries showed German U-boats repeatedly arriving at positions where convoys should have been, only to find empty ocean. The pattern was so consistent that American naval commanders began using German submarine positions as negative indicators. If German U-boats were concentrated in an area, Allied convoys could safely use those waters, knowing that enemy forces were searching somewhere else entirely. The industrial impact of reduced shipping losses transformed the entire Allied war effort. Merchant vessels that would have been sunk by German torpedoes continued carrying vital supplies to Britain and the Soviet Union. Steel that would have rested on the ocean floor instead reached British factories producing aircraft and tanks. Oil that would have created burning slicks on the Atlantic surface powered Allied military operations across multiple theaters. The cumulative effect was enormous. American intelligence had effectively restored Allied supply lines that had been severed by German submarine warfare. British factories that had operated on starvation rations of raw materials suddenly found their supply situations improving dramatically. Aircraft production increased as aluminum shipments reached their destinations intact. Tank manufacturing accelerated as steel deliveries arrived on schedule rather than disappearing beneath Atlantic waves. The Industrial Renaissance, enabled by protected shipping, fundamentally altered Britain's capacity to contribute to Allied military operations. Soviet forces fighting on the Eastern Front began receiving Lend-Lease supplies that had previously fallen victim to German submarines. American tanks, trucks and aircraft that would never have reached Murmansk or Archangel instead arrived to strengthen Soviet resistance against German ground forces. The strategic implications were profound. American intelligence operations in the Atlantic were directly supporting Soviet military effectiveness thousands of miles away. German naval intelligence struggled to understand the transformation they were observing. Reports from submarine commanders painted a picture of Allied convoy operations that seemed almost clairvoyant in their ability to avoid German forces. German analysts considered multiple explanations: improved Allied reconnaissance, better escort tactics, changes in shipping schedules, even the possibility of espionage within German submarine command. None of these theories adequately explained the scope and consistency of German tactical failures. Admiral Dönitz ordered investigations into potential security breaches, never suspecting that the security breach was fundamental. That every encrypted message his submarines transmitted was being read by American intelligence. German counterintelligence services examined personnel files, communication procedures, and operational security, searching for explanations that didn't exist. The investigation consumed resources and attention without revealing the actual source of German intelligence failures. American naval officers found themselves fighting a war that had been transformed beyond recognition. Convoy commanders who had spent months dodging German submarines suddenly possessed intelligence that made enemy positions predictable and avoidable. The psychological relief was enormous. For the first time since America entered the war, Atlantic convoys felt like routine cargo runs rather than desperate races against invisible predators. The strategic balance in the Atlantic had shifted fundamentally. German submarines that had once hunted Allied shipping with impunity now operated under constant surveillance by an enemy they couldn't see. American radio intelligence had achieved what no military force had managed: the systematic neutralization of German submarine effectiveness through technological superiority rather than direct combat. The hunters had become the hunted, tracked by American ears that heard everything while German eyes saw nothing. The success of American radio intelligence against German Enigma communications triggered an unprecedented expansion of electronic surveillance capabilities that would reshape modern warfare forever. By mid-1943, the U.S. Navy operated more than 50 listening stations along the Atlantic and Pacific coasts, each equipped with receivers capable of monitoring German, Japanese, and Italian military communications simultaneously. The scale of this network dwarfed anything previously attempted. American intelligence was capturing more than 10,000 enemy transmissions daily, processing them through mechanical computing systems that represented the earliest ancestors of modern digital technology. American investment in cryptographic technology reached industrial proportions as the strategic value of communications intelligence became clear. The Navy's computing facilities in Washington employed more than 2,000 personnel operating machines that filled entire city blocks. These mechanical brains could test cryptographic combinations at speeds that amazed visiting British officials, processing Enigma decryptions in hours rather than days. The technological leap forward was so significant that American code-breaking capabilities exceeded British achievements despite Britain's 3-year head start in Enigma research. The mathematical precision of American intelligence operations revolutionized naval warfare strategy. Convoy routing became a science rather than an art, with course decisions based on precise intelligence about German submarine positions rather than guesswork about enemy intentions. Statistical analysis revealed that American convoys using intelligence-based routing suffered 70% fewer losses than convoys following traditional navigation patterns. The numbers were so compelling that convoy routing based on radio intelligence became standard procedure across all Allied naval operations. German submarine construction could no longer compensate for the strategic disadvantage created by compromised communications. Between January and June 1943, German shipyards launched 123 new U-boats, the largest submarine construction program in naval history. However, these additional submarines achieved progressively worse results as American intelligence capabilities expanded. New U-boats found themselves tracked from the moment they transmitted their first operational messages, turned from hunters into targets before they could engage enemy shipping. The technological arms race that developed around radio intelligence pushed both American and German capabilities toward limits that seemed impossible in 1939. American listening stations developed direction-finding techniques so precise they could locate German submarines to within 5-mile squares across ocean areas larger than entire European countries. German attempts to improve Enigma security through additional rotor wheels and more complex key schedules only provided American codebreakers with more intercepted traffic to analyze. American industrial capacity applied to intelligence operations created advantages that German technology could not counter. Where German Enigma machines were individually crafted precision instruments, American code-breaking equipment was mass-produced with standardized components that could be rapidly deployed and easily maintained. American intelligence stations could be constructed and operational within months, while German attempts to improve communication security required years of research and development. The strategic implications of communications intelligence extended far beyond the Atlantic theater. American techniques developed for intercepting German naval traffic were rapidly adapted for Japanese military communications in the Pacific. The technology that gave American convoys strategic advantage over German U-boats soon provided American forces with similar intelligence superiority over Japanese naval and air operations. Communications intelligence became a force multiplier that enhanced American military effectiveness across every theater of World War II. British code-breaking efforts, which had provided the foundation for Enigma decryption, were soon overshadowed by American industrial-scale intelligence operations. What had begun as British academic research into German cryptographic systems evolved into American technological dominance that processed enemy communications on a scale never before imagined. The partnership between British theoretical knowledge and American technological capacity created intelligence capabilities that neither nation could have achieved independently. German Naval Command never understood the extent of their communications compromise. German intelligence services investigated potential security breaches but focused on human factors rather than technological vulnerabilities. They examined personnel loyalty, operational procedures, and administrative security, while never suspecting that their communication systems themselves had been compromised by American technological capabilities that exceeded German understanding. The cumulative effect of American radio intelligence was measurable in concrete strategic outcomes. Allied shipping losses, which had peaked at 807,754 tons in November 1942, dropped to 264,151 tons by May 1943, a reduction of more than 65% that directly resulted from intelligence-based convoy routing. German submarine effectiveness, measured by tons sunk per submarine per patrol, declined by more than 70% during the same period. These statistics represented not just tactical success, but strategic transformation of the entire Atlantic War. Post-war analysis revealed that American radio intelligence had effectively ended German submarine warfare as a strategic threat 6 months before German Naval Command recognized the extent of their failure. Intelligence advantages created through communications interception had rendered German U-boat operations predictably unsuccessful, forcing German naval resources into increasingly desperate attempts to achieve results against an enemy who knew their every move in advance. The silent war fought in American radio rooms ultimately proved more decisive than any battle waged on Atlantic waters. While German U-boat commanders trusted their lives to Enigma encryption, American operators with headphones pressed against their ears were systematically dismantling German naval strategy, one intercepted transmission at a time. The technological superiority that American industry brought to communications intelligence transformed the entire character of modern warfare, establishing principles of electronic surveillance that would define military operations for generations. German submarine forces never recovered from the strategic blindness created by their faith in unbreakable codes. By late 1943, Admiral Dönitz was withdrawing U-boats from Atlantic operations, attributing his failures to improved Allied tactics rather than compromised German communications. The irony was complete. German confidence in their most advanced technology had become the instrument of their own defeat. Every Enigma message that German commanders trusted to coordinate their attacks was being read by American intelligence before German submarines could act on their orders. The human cost of this technological transformation was measured not in lives lost, but in lives saved. American merchant sailors who would have died in torpedo attacks instead completed their voyages safely, carrying the supplies that kept Britain fighting and the Soviet Union resisting. The mathematical precision of intelligence-guided convoy routing had turned potential casualties into strategic victories, proving that superior information could be more powerful than superior weapons. American radio intelligence established a template for technological warfare that would dominate military thinking throughout the remainder of the 20th century. The principle that communications could be systematically intercepted, decoded, and converted into tactical advantage became the foundation for intelligence operations that extended from World War II through the Cold War and into the digital age. What began as a desperate attempt to protect Atlantic convoys evolved into a new form of warfare based on information rather than firepower. The ultimate testament to American success lay in German ignorance of their own vulnerability. Post-war interrogations revealed that German naval commanders never suspected the extent of Allied communications intelligence. They attributed their failures to bad luck, improved enemy tactics, and operational challenges rather than fundamental compromise of their communication systems. This strategic blindness demonstrated the devastating effectiveness of intelligence operations that remained completely invisible to their targets. Stories like this reveal how technological innovation could transform entire theaters of operation without firing a single shot. American engineers and cryptanalysts achieved what naval combat had failed to accomplish: the systematic neutralization of German submarine warfare through superior intelligence rather than superior force. In the next episode, we'll explore another hidden technological advantage that turned the tide of war through American ingenuity. Subscribe and follow the series to discover how American innovation continued reshaping the conflict in ways the enemy never saw coming.